Renaissance is a French word which translates to rebirth, as it was the period in which the entire Europe was reborn. As this era was an intense period of European cultural, artistic, political, and economic rebirth following the Middle Ages, it is known to be lasted from the 14th century to the 17th century. It is credited with bridging the gap between the Middle Ages and the modern day civilization. Now let's study further into it. As we know, the Renaissance era began from the 14th century. Before that, the early Middle Ages were known as the Dark Ages, which is often branded as a time of war, ignorance, famine, and pandemics such as the Black Death. Renaissance gave new beginning to Europe, which helped Europeans advance in arts and sciences. During the 14th century, a cultural movement called Humanism began to gain momentum in Italy. But wait, what is humanism? Humanism is a philosophy that stresses the importance of human factors rather than looking at religious, divine, or spiritual matters. It stresses the importance of human values and dignity and proposes that people can resolve problems through the use of science and reasons. One of the great study of humanism was The Vitruvian Man by Leonardo da Vinci, as it was a human in its most natural, nude, and human-like state. The accurate anatomical proportions and body positioning in this piece was profound. Not only does this image portray humanistic ideals, it also has a geometrical appeal to it. Renaissance started in Florence, Italy, a place with rich cultural history where wealthy citizens could afford to support budding artists. At that time, the Medici family, which controlled Florence throughout much of the Renaissance, played a large part in the patronage of the arts and the political development of the cities. The Medici family, also known as the House of Medici, first attained wealth and political power in Florence in the mid-14th century through its success in commerce and banking. Art, architecture, and science during the Renaissance period. Art, architecture, and science were closely linked during the Renaissance. It was a unique time when these fields of study fused together seamlessly. Artists like Da Vinci incorporated scientific principles such as anatomy into their work so they could recreate the human body with extraordinary precision. Architects such as Filippo Brunelleschi studied mathematics to accurately engineer and design immense buildings with expansive domes. Some of the greatest scientific discoveries were also made during the Renaissance era. Galileo and Descartes presented a new view of astrology and mathematics, and Copernicus proposed that the sun was the center of the solar system and not the earth. Artworks during that time was characterized by realism and naturalism. Artists used techniques like shadow and light to add depth to their work. Emotions was another quality that artists tried to infuse into their pieces. Let's take the creation of Adam by Michelangelo as an example of realism. The techniques he picked up as a sculptor most likely contributed to the realism. His figures of God and Adam are being symbolic of Renaissance paintings as they reflect the realistic ideology of that time. Exploration made during the Renaissance. Some Europeans took to the seas to learn more about the world around them. In a period known as the Age of Discovery, several important explorations were made. Voyagers went on a journey to travel the entire globe. They discovered new shipping routes to the Americas, India, and the Far East. Famous journeys were taken by Ferdinand Magellan, Christopher Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, whom America is named after, Marco Polo, and other explorers. Then came the end of the Renaissance. By the end of the 15th century, numerous wars had plagued the Italian peninsula. Spanish, French, German invaders battling for the Italian territories caused disruption and instability in the region. Also, changing trade routes led to a period of economic decline and limited the amount of money that wealthy contributors could spend on the arts. Later, in a movement known as the Counter-Reformation, the Catholic Church censored artists and writers in response to the Protestant Reformation. Many Renaissance thinkers feared being too bold, which stifled creativity. By the early 17th century, the Renaissance movement had died out, giving way to the Age of Enlightenment. Renaissance geniuses. Some of the most famous Renaissance intellectuals, artists, scientists, and writers are Leonardo da Vinci. He was an Italian painter, architect, inventor, and known as the Renaissance man, responsible for painting the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Desiderius Erasmus. He was one of Europe's most famous and influential scholars. He is also the one who defined the humanist movement in Northern Europe. René Descartes, a French philosopher and mathematician regarded as the father of modern philosophy. He was famous for stating, "I think, therefore I am." Galileo Galilei, an Italian astronomer, physicist, and engineer whose pioneering work with telescopes enables him to describe the moon of Jupiter and rings of Saturn. William Shakespeare. He was England's national poet and the most famous playwright of all time, known for his sonnets in plays like Romeo and Juliet. Raphael. He was an Italian painter who learned from Da Vinci and Michelangelo and was best known for his paintings of the Madonna and the School of Athens. Now last but not least, Michelangelo. He was an Italian sculptor, painter, and architect who carved David and painted the Sistine Chapel in Rome.